All right. Well, welcome back to the second episode here in the 4.11 New Player Industrial Play. Today we're going to take a look at modules and gadgets, and then we'll probably go out and do a little mining with one or more equipped. So let's start with modules first. So we're going to go with the passive modules first. As you can see, there's a number of them. You see the one that's not showing here is actually a Riker C3. Oh, yeah, there it is. Actually, it is here. All right, so we'll start up here. Some of these we're not going to bother with. For instance, this FLTR module, we're not going to worry about that too much. Basically, all that does is actually reduce the amount of inert material you get. The lasers actually do this inherently already. I mean, I guess you could increase it and make it better, but I don't see much point. So the next one from that is going to be the focus module. This is actually the one I usually run, especially on the Golem. So it gives you a 40% higher, bigger optimal charge window size at a reduction of 5% power. So that's pretty significant when you actually look at some of these things that we're going to break. Riger C3, on the other hand, one of the other ones I usually run regularly, actually increases your power by 25%, but reduces your charge window by -1. And then we'll go down through here. I don't really do too much with the bow box, whatever you want to call them. Gives your extraction laser more power, but that's not really an issue normally. And it reduces your charge rate. So not a big deal there. Now the XTLR or XTR XL will actually basically increase your optimal charge window size, reduce your inert material level at a 5% cost. Not really worthwhile in itself. The turret, on the other hand, actually increases your charge rate, but reduces your charge window size by -1. So if you're using a Golem, what I would actually recommend, typically, unless you want to go with active modules, I would go with the Focus 3 and probably the Rager C3. That'll actually let you crack bigger rocks. If you're more concerned with, or you find that using the Riger C3 isn't really necessary for you, maybe you're not really looking to get bigger rocks, then you could use a Torrent 3 instead. And what that'll do is that'll actually override or offset the negatives that you get from the Golem's mining head. That actually decreases the charge rate. So it'll actually fill up that green zone faster, which is kind of what we're looking for in that respect. But I still prefer the Focus 3 and the Riger C3. Now you're looking at 100 grand for those two together. Now keep in mind though, these are modules that go on the mining head. So once you equip them, if you have to claim your ship, they should still be there. So you shouldn't have to worry about losing them. All right, so now on the other side of that, we have the active modules. What active means is, take for example this Brant module. So active means that it has pluses, minuses, whatever the case may be, but it has just a number of uses. Once those uses are gone, it becomes inert and doesn't do anything. Matter of fact, it should actually disappear from the equipment, from the mining head, once it's full, once it's gone. In this particular case, the Brant will actually decrease your shatter damage. So if you do overcharge, 30% less damage, and it'll actually increase your laser power by 135%. Now keep in mind, duration on it's only 60 seconds. So if you see that you're actually overcharging the rock and you can't get away fast enough, you can pop this real quick. And then that way you actually maybe take a little less damage. Maybe it's the difference between actually blowing up or just getting damaged. The 4L, on the other hand, which I'll be honest, I haven't really used. Again, extraction laser power, not a big deal. Catastrophic charge rate, that could be helpful. Just because, kind of like over here, the shatter damage. Well, catastrophic charge rate should reduce your, I'm going to guess the rate at which the red zone fills, is what it would seem to me. But it does increase your resistance. Again, another one that only has 6 uses, just like this one has 5. Lifeline, on the other hand, actually decreases your laser instability, and it reduces your resistance by 15. But your catastrophic charge rate is increased by 60%. So, which means theoretically, the red zone will probably actually fill faster. The Rime module Gives you minus 25% resistance, minus 10% shatter damage, but your laser power is 15% less, and it lasts 20 seconds. So if you had to, theoretically, the only thing I could see using this for would be, for instance, if you wanted to have a module that you could use for cracking like secondary breaks, maybe. Might use for that. Let's see. Stampede gives you higher power, less shatter damage, less laser instability, but your extraction laser power is less. Now keep in mind that you have this Stampede module. The duration is only 30 seconds. It's only got 6 uses. Realistically, you should never be using this when you're actually doing an extraction. So this is a mute point. So if you had to go with an active, this is the ones I would actually, one of the ones I would actually recommend. Then the Torpid gives you a faster charge rate, but it gives you a negative 60% catastrophic charge rate. Again, I believe that means that it actually is going to reduce how fast the red zone fills if you do get up in the charge, overcharging it. But it increases your shatter damage by 40%. That right there alone would be a reason not to use it. I believe there's actually one more. Let me look here real quick. I believe there's actually one more that's not showing here. Let me look here. Used to have a surge, and I believe they still have it. Let me look here. All right, calculators. Modules and gadgets. So yes, the surge, which is not on this list because it's not sold here, actually gives you 50% more power, minus 15% resistance, 10% more instability, has 7 uses, and it lasts for 15 seconds. You could put one of these on there along with a Stampede, and then like say you've got a larger rock that's at your higher capacity where you can't really get it to charge. Theoretically, you could use the surge to actually get that power up a little bit more, 50% more. When you're talking about 3100 on the Golem, now you're talking about, 46, 47 in that range. So that's a significant boost in power. That's approaching like the power of some of the size 2 mining heads. So that in itself right there would give you a great boost in power, but it's only good for 15 seconds. But if you use that in conjunction with a Stampede, theoretically, with that higher laser power there, oh, they actually changed that. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know that I'd bother using those two together. Used to be, this one, Stampede, used to actually give you a better charge rate. But apparently it doesn't do that any longer. So now it looks like the optimal charge rate now is the 60% faster as the Torpid module. So if you don't mind the shatter damage possible, that might be a good one to pair with the Surge. Personally, I don't use active mining heads or modules because I don't want to have to deal with having to replace them when I need to, even though they now have it where supposedly we can change them on the fly when we need to. So theoretically, you could carry spare ones in your backpack and then add them back onto your mining head when they expire. So personally, what I would say is your best bet, especially if you're starting out, would be the Focus 3 for sure, because that gives you a bigger charge window, makes it easier for you when you're charging it up in the green zone. The Riger C3 would be my personal preference because it gives you more power. So you figure 25% power at 3100 works out to, we'll just roughly say it takes you up to about 36, 38 in that range. 100. Now, with that being said, if you don't want to actually deal with the bigger rocks or something like that, you can actually go with that turret instead and actually get a faster charge rate. And that, again, is how fast the green window fills up. So that's what I would go with as far as mining heads go, or mining modules go. Now, as far as gadgets, totally different world here. Gadgets are typically reusable unless they get destroyed or broke while you're mining, which does happen on occasion, but for the most part, you can use these multiple times. You'll also notice that, so let's look again here real quick. So you see how these active modules are much cheaper? You could use these, say, if you just had a stock golem or a stock prospector and you didn't have a lot of money yet, but you want to be able to crack a bigger rock, say for instance, you can go get a Surge, which is right around that, I think, 2,000 mark for those, if I remember correctly. So that would give you that extra boost of power without having to put out that 60 grand for the Riker C3. The active module or the passive modules are significantly more expensive, but remember, they don't expire, and as long as they're on your ship when it gets destroyed or claimed, you get them back. And they do actually persist for the most part through wipes most of the time, not all the time. All right, back to gadgets. Now you'll notice these have different prices just depending on what they do. So we'll start with the one up here in the top left, the Optimax. What that'll give you is less resistance and a higher cluster modifier. Cluster modifier refers to the, let's say for instance you've got a rock that's composed of bexolite and aluminum. And let's say it's 40% bexolite, 60% aluminum. Well, realistically speaking, if you say take a 10K rock, when you break that rock, it's going to break into pieces. And you may have to do secondary breaks as well. So what this will do with the cluster modifier is you got a 60% increase in the effectiveness of that break that will actually cause more of those materials to cluster together. So for instance, you could get a higher percentage rock broke that breaks, or what's left in the rock that breaks, that may be more bexolite than aluminum. And that's kind of what you're looking for. That's when you talk about here, people talk about good breaks. Good breaks will usually have 50 or 60% or more of the good minerals that you want. So that's, and you might use this like, say, let's say you come across a Quantanium rock. Quantanium sells for what, somewhere between about 22 and 25,000, depending on where you sell it per SCU. And you might get, I don't know, on average with a golem or a prospector, you might be able to get about 10 to 12 SCU out of a decent sized rock. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but on average, I'd say you're probably somewhere between 8 and 12. So if you only have 8 to 12 SCU in one rock of Quantanium, you're going to want to get as much of that Quantanium as you can with as little of the other materials as possible. This really comes into play when you're doing like bexolite, terranite, and gold. Because what you want is for those, you want to be able to keep going. So you want to be able to grab the high percentage rocks that have a lot of bexolite, terranite, and gold, break those rocks, pick up the big chunks that have lots in it, and then move on to another deposit somewhere. So you can maximize the amounts you're bringing home. All right, so, and that actually gives you a minus 30% to your optimal charge window size. So keep that in mind because that's, again, that's how big that green zone is. And if you start getting into Quantanium and stuff like that, it can get really small real fast. The wave shift, on the other hand, gives you a decrease in laser instability, but it increases your charge window size by 100%. So this is effectively doubling the size of your charge window. So if you're having a lot of trouble keeping it contained in the green, then that would really help a lot. Plus, it has a 30% charge window rate. Now keep in mind that the Golem specifically actually has a minus 40, I believe it is, to the charge window rate. So if you use this gadget with it, you're looking at a minus 70, which just means that you're going to extract or you're going to charge much slower, which means that much more time that you have to keep it in the green zone. All right, for the next one, I'm going to go off out of sequence a little bit here. We're going to go ahead and go with the Bormax first. So Bormax will actually reduce your laser instability, which is your, think of it as like jumpiness. It can cause your laser power to jump around significantly on the rock. Sometimes this is helpful in the fact that it can actually let you crack bigger rocks. Sometimes it's detrimental, and it can prevent you from breaking bigger rocks. You want your instability to be as stable as possible. It also gives you a 10% resistance, so 10% more resistance than what you had, but it does actually give you a cluster modifier. So of the four, well, okay, we need to cover the saber real quick first. This is my go-to gadget here. This is the one I usually carry on me. The reason being is it automatically increases your charge window by 50%. So now I can use the Focus 3, I can use the Riker C3 to get more power. I put the saber on it, now I have a bigger charge window. Well, that's great. What else can I do? Well, that resistance, minus 50%. This could literally be the difference between being able to crack a 10, 12, 14K rock and not being able to crack it. And at a cost of 15% instability. Again, remember, instability can make the rock harder to crack or easier to crack depending on how it goes. So, so that's what we've got as far as those go. For those of you that are using a prospector, we'll go ahead and cover mining heads to some extent, what they have here. But just keep in mind that the golem, you can't use a different mining head. You're basically stuck with what you get. So we'll start with the lancet. Don't even bother. There's no point even messing with it. You automatically lose 60% of your optimal charge window size, even though you grant a charge rate and instability is decreased. Nobody uses this anymore. Plus, it's only 2250 or 2520 mining laser power max, and it's got a lowest of 504. So it's not ideal at all. The Arbor, on the other hand, is the one that comes with uh, the Arbor. Oh, sorry, that's the MHB lighting laser. This is the one we want, the MH1. Size 1 comes with the actual prospector normally. And it's all right. It's not very powerful. I mean, you're looking at a power of 189 to 1890. Keep in mind that the Golem, for instance, has 3100, which is one of the higher ratings for, and is equivalent to the Helix down here. So, but you don't have to pay anything because you already have it. So that's the big thing in keeping there. And it does actually come with a module slot. So you can throw a Riger C3 on there and actually go. Or you can even throw a Surge on there and use that to get more power temporarily. It does, however, give you a more of a charge window size, and it actually has 30% inert material level. You'll find a lot of times most of these are going to be in that range. Now the downside is it does give you higher resistance, 25%. So again, you get less power and you actually have higher resistance. So next we'll go with the Hofstede, which is my basic choice for the Prospector. This is what I personally use. Only gives you one module slot. It's 105 to 2100 power. I'm not even going to worry about extraction laser power because currently that doesn't really have a lot of effect. So it does actually give you minus 30 on resistance. Gives you a 20% increased charge rate window. And inert material again is 30. But it does give you a plus 10% on laser instability. So overall, this is probably the best bang for your buck, and it only costs 12 grand. Well, almost 13. Now, comparing that one, my other second choice would be the Klein. Roughly about the same power if you look at them. They're pretty close. However, it gives you minus 45 to resistance and gives you a charge window size increase. So that's a good secondary one, especially if you only have enough to buy a mining head or a mining laser, but you don't have enough to buy any modules. Because this has no modules. So what you see is what you get. So you don't have to worry about putting anything else on it. You carry a gadget, use this, and I used this for quite a while back in a couple of patches ago. So that's an overall good choice as well. Impact, obviously they don't have the Impact 1 here. The 2 is obviously more powerful, but the Impact MH1 or size 1 is actually going to fall somewhere between the Helix and the Klein and Hofstede. I believe it's about 2,000, 220, 200 or roughly, I think, for power, if I remember right. Gives you 2 module slots, not 3. I believe. Let me double check that. Let's see. Yeah, so the Impact is going to give you 2 slots. Gives you 20% mining minimum power. Goes up to 2100 max power. Gives you plus 10 to resistance, minus 10 to instability, minus 40 to your optimal charge rate, which is comparable with the mining laser on the Golem. But it gives you a plus 20% charge window. So not a bad one there either. I know a lot of people that use that. And the last one we're going to cover is basically going to be the Helix. Actually, I don't remember seeing this one. What size is that? Size, okay, so that's small. So that's not even, these are going to go on something else here. I believe these are, yeah, Rock DS. The Atlas Geo. Okay. Yep, and that's the size S0. So those are going to be for your vehicles, like your Geo, so forth. So size 0, size 0, size. Okay. So your Helix is going to be the last one that we can buy for ships. You can't currently buy the one for the Golem. It just comes with it. The Helix, you have to be really close to it, within 45 meters. If you notice a lot of these other ones, the minimum range or the optimal range is 45, but you can go out to 135. The Helix, on the other hand, you have to be within 45, which means that if you do have a problem and you overcharge it, it is probably going to destroy or break your ship pretty quickly. So basically 30.50, so it's the strongest laser you could put on a prospector. Has two modules, so that's just like the laser on the Golem, which is the Pittman laser, is what it's called. Gives you minus 30 to resistance. Inert material is the same as the other ones. This is the big factor right here, though. It gives you a minus 40 optimal charge window size. You can fit a laser that's really powerful, but it's, minus 40% on your charge window size. So when you're first starting out, you definitely want to avoid that. I would start out with the Hofstede personally. If you don't want to worry about modules and you just want to go out and mine and call it a day, then get the Klein. Those are what I would recommend. All right. All right. That's probably about all we're going to cover for the pieces of it. So now let's go ahead and go back up. Well, actually, we can just go right here. So we're going to take and go into the VLM, because this is how you'll equip modules and laser heads themselves. So find the ship you're looking for. All right. Go to utility. You'll see on here I've got the Pittman mining laser. I can't change it. It won't let me. It won't even let me select it. That's actually just part of the Golem. There's no way around it. So I'm going to go ahead and focus 3 module. And I'm going to go ahead and do the second one as the Riker C3. So. Alright. And then if you look at my backpack, I don't have any. I've got all 4 on me right now. That's probably about 50, 60 grand worth of mining gadgets right there. Keep in mind, anything in your backpack, if you die or explode, is gone. So just keep that in mind. This is one of the reasons why I typically just use a saber and that's it, because I don't have to worry about losing anything. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a minute while I get back up to the hangar. Alright, so we're back in our ship now in the hangar. You can actually see on the right, on the left here. So I've actually got the mining. I've got the module 3 module, or the focus 3 module. You can see what it's giving me. The Riker C3 with the higher power. And then down here you can see the modifications. So fracture power, -5 for the focus, plus 25 for the Riker C3. We actually have resistance, 25% more, instability, 35% more. Charge rate is going to be 40% less. This is all part of the actual mining head. There's nothing you can do about it. And the window size, which gives me 194 plus 40%. And I got a -1 for the Riker C3. And shatter damage is just 100%. So there's no modifiers to it at all. Alright, so now let's go out and do a little mining. Again, you'll actually call for either in the comms and go to the actual, so go to comms, go to friends, click on this, and it'll actually call for the hangar. You can either use that for taking off or landing. I actually have it set to a key. I found F3 works pretty good. Just a matter of opinion. Some people have other ways they do it, but that's what works for me. Alright, so let's go out here, put your landing gear up after you're out of the hangar, unless you're familiar with flying much. We're going to go ahead and go to Selling. We'll go to Maps. You can hit F2 to do that, or you can go through from F1. We're going to go to Selling, which is actually really friendly for Prospector and Golem size mining ships. We're not even going to worry about picking a place on it. We're just going to go to the moon itself. switch over to nav mode. Again, B, unless you've changed it on your keyboard. And we're going to actually charge up our quantum drive. Once you do that, you'll either hold the left mouse button or whatever other button you set it to, and that will engage it. Don't mind the hunt of Polaris, I'm just getting free script right now, assuming that anybody actually does the mission. You'll notice up in the top left, you'll see the H2 fuel and the QT fuel. That's hydrogen fuel, which is what you'll normally use flying around, and quantum fuel, which is actually what you're using when you're in quantum like this. Whenever you're quantuming to the moons from a mining station, like Crew L1, you will end up going through the primary planet or to the primary planet first. And then depending on how it routed you, you may have to go to an OM to go around the planet. Alright, in this case we have to go to OM3 first. And then we can go to selling. Alright. So now that we're here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pick some place. So for instance, I'm going to go over here to OM2 because it's still in the light and I want to mine in the light. Some people prefer darkness, I don't. And we're going to jump to there. I'm going to see if it actually gives us the light we want, which currently it does not give us much light, but it gives us some. So we'll actually maybe jump one more time. So let's try 3. See if that gives us more. Now keep in mind, if you're out here for mining for any length of time, you will probably still end up in the dark at some point. Trick is being able to get your brakes in and everything and pick up before it happens, but that's not always possible. So now we'll go, theoretically you could just drop down to the center here and so forth, but you'll notice this place right here is only 642 kilometers. That means it's more than likely on this side of the moon. I don't want to go anywhere near that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and try to pick somewhere away from all of this, because keep in mind, up in the top left on this screen right here, you can see my IR signature is 20.3. Emissions or electromagnetic is 37.6. What those numbers represent is the distance at which somebody can see you. So basically what this means is because I've got the basic setup in here, the basic components that came with it, somebody can see me in the IR spectrum at 20K. In the EM or electromagnetic spectrum, they can see me in 37 up to 37K away. So keep that in mind. So that's, you want to keep outside of that range from any landing zones. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick a spot that I want to go to. I'm going to go ahead and get up to full speed. While I'm still in nav mode, I'm going to go ahead and set my cruise using Alt-C, and then I'm going to hit C again take it out of coupled mode. Now we're in decoupled. So now basically the ship will keep moving at this speed even if I remove cruise. And obviously if you'll notice, right up there below the speed, the 1010 is actually your bars for your speed. What we're going to do is we're going to go down to the planet. And before we get when we see the actual ranges come in, that's when we're going to stop. And see, if you look, see I do this, I'm still going that same way. Turning my ship makes no difference because I'm decoupled. So it's not really going to matter what I do. It's going to keep going that direction until I tell it to stop. Now if I were to put this back in coupled mode instead of decoupled, then I could actually use the thrusters and so forth to actually change my course. We're not going to worry about that though. Now keep in mind, you have to actually put coupled back on, hit Alt-C to come out of cruise when you get down here and you see the actual altitude. You'll see the altitude will actually pop up over here on this side, right here. All right. So now I'm going to hit C. I'm going to hit Alt C, and then I'm going to change to SCM mode. All right. You see here on the right down here, that's coupled mode right there. See, if I hit C, it goes off. If I hit it again, it goes on. All right, so now we're down. We're about 3K above the surface. So now we'll drop down farther. And right now it looks like we're still in cruise, so we'll get rid of that. Cruise isn't really a big factor. The coupled is the big deal. You got to take it out of coupled. All right, and I usually want to drop down to, say about 1 to 2K. And then I'll start pinging for rocks. And of course, right now we have none. Let's check and see if there's any. Oh, there's one that way. So we'll go check that out. You can actually use the boost to get there faster, if you're so inclined. I'd have to look and see what boost is set to. For most people, I use the left trigger or the left joystick trigger for it. You can ping like this until you get within about 2K, and then it's going to actually show you what's actually there. So in this case, we've got 5 rocks here, and a little farther on, we've got more rocks. All right, so let's see if we can get scanning working properly. So if you'll see right there, that bar that's going up and down more, you want to pull your mouse wheel all the way forward until it's all in the bottom like that. And then theoretically, you can hold the button to scan when you're on the rock. And theoretically, it should tell you at some point what it is up here in the scan window. So in here, it's an igneous deposit. Parts doesn't show me. Cargo's not showing me. So it doesn't seem to be working very well right now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and put our mining laser out. And then we'll go down here and take a look at these rocks. This is usually more foolproof, and it usually shows you what you've got. So right here, right off the bat, we've got an 11K laranite rock. 32% with aluminum and inert material. Over here to the other sides, these look like they'll be bigger, so we may not be able to do anything with them. We'll see. There's an 18K rock with bexolite. Unfortunately, that's probably going to be too big for us. We'll try, but it isn't likely. Got a 32K. That's definitely outside our window of what we can do. That's more like a mole size rock. And we've got 33, another one that's outside our size. And 42. So those are all going to be too big. This one is probably our best bet, but it's laranite, and I'm not really interested in it. We can try this 18K rock. Notice how it says impossible. If you look, it's got 19% resistance, and it looks like roughly about 172 instability. But that doesn't really necessarily mean that you can't crack it, theoretically. Theoretically, you might still have a chance. We'll go ahead and try it with nothing just to see if we get lucky. Sometimes these lasers are actually optimized for different rock structures. At least so we've been told. I've not really been able to deduce the exact what laser works best for what rock, but obviously we're not moving that. So let's go ahead and get out the... Well, actually, let's do this. Since this is a training video, let's just go ahead and take a look at this rock over here. See if we can crack it. So we're in the optimal zone. You'll notice right here, optimal zone. That's where you want to be to crack rocks. This is your overcharge area. This is your charge area here. And then this will actually show you your laser power. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. So you'll notice we can charge this one. So being that we can charge this one at 11.8K, maybe, just maybe, if I put the, let's see, yep, that's the 18K rock here. So possibly, if I get lucky, I could actually set up with the saber head on here. Let's go ahead and put our landing gear down. Go ahead and land here. So now I'll go ahead and show you how to use the mining laser, or the mining gadget. Whether or not we can actually break this is a moot point. You need to know how to use these mining gadgets if you want to be able to use them. So that's what we're going to look at first. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my engines off by hitting I. I'll go ahead and get out of my seat. Make sure you have a helmet on before you get in the golem, because this drops you right outside your ship. It's not as much of an issue in a prospector, but in a golem you don't have that option. So you'll notice I keep these in my backpack because they have a tendency to disappear if you put them on the back. When you put it on your back, it will actually end up right here at the bottom of your backpack. So we're going to go with the saber. I click it, you can see where it showed up. In order to actually get that to show up, I'm going to hit 5 for my utility until it actually gets to that. And we're going to go up here to the rock, find a decent place to put it, holding left click on the mouse button, then hold it, and then we'll put it on the rock. And it actually put it on upside right for once. All right. Now, see, right here we've got 76%. So we're going to mess with these here and try to increase that to 90%, 90+% actually. So you just keep adjusting these back and forth, get the highest you can. I've not really found where it makes much of a difference, so I'm just going to stick with 98 and call it good. You'll see down here we get a little more instability, we get a 50% more charge window, and we get minus 50 resistance. We'll go ahead and activate it by clicking that button, and now we'll go back here, and you'll be able to see the difference in the resistance. Alright, now we're all closed up. We'll turn our engines back on. And you can actually leave your landing gear down or up, depending on what you want to do. It doesn't really matter. We're going to go ahead and get our mining head back out. We're in the optimal charge range. Now keep in mind, the farther you get from it, the farther you get from the rock, the less power. The closer you get, the more power you're putting into it. So that does make a difference. Go ahead and start the laser. Notice how my charge window over here got bigger. Notice my resistance is now down to 12%, but my instability is up to 200 something now instead of like 170 or 190 or whatever it was. So we're going to go ahead and increase our laser power. Notice we're charging. Now this is an 18K rock with just a gadget and 2 modules on it. Without that gadget, you would not be able to crack this with this ship. Even the Helix would not be able to do this. So we're going to go ahead and keep it going until it gets up in the charge area. Sometimes it can be kind of a pain waiting for it. You'll see it climb pretty high. Sometimes you got to adjust the ship a little bit to get the laser in a different spot. There we go. Now we're up in there. And we've got about halfway or so. I'm just going to go ahead and let it go. I'll back down a little bit just to keep it from going more than halfway. I'll take it back up as I need to keep it in that area and just kind of feather it back and forth. There we go. There's an 18K rock cracked with a golem. With a Riger C3 and a Focus 3. So now we're going to go ahead and put the mining laser away for a minute. We're going to go ahead and land back down on the ground, which is kind of why I left the landing gear out. Turn off the engines. And we're going to go get our gadget. See if it's still working. Alright. So the way to find your gadget is basically just look for it like this. Alright. So let's see. Crouch down here. See if we can actually turn it off. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and pick it up and carry it. Alright, so now you see it in front of me. You see it still flashing. And there's no way to turn it off. But we can actually put it away by holding R. That will actually put it back on our backpack. You'll see it right here. And then because I'm worried about losing it, I'll go ahead and throw it back in my backpack. Alright, now let's go ahead and see what we need to do for secondary brakes. Keep in mind this was a 20-something% Bexolite with aluminum as a base material. And as you can see, those rocks are pretty big, even after they broke. Let's go ahead and turn our engines back on. Alright, now let's look. So you see how big these are. That's still 1699 mass, 30% Bexolite, and it's yellow, so we're not going to be able to pick this up. We're going to have to break it again. So we'll hit it again with the laser. And this time we might actually have to like toggle back and forth with the power on. Notice I went in the red that time. So let it go down until that red is gone. Keep in mind we can back up a little bit, so we put just a little bit less power in. We still got to stay within the max, though. Alright, let's try it again. Alright, there we go. So this is actually one of the workarounds for, because you only have minimum of 20% power. Notice I'm in the red. I got to nudge it forward a little bit. So we get back into yellow there. Then I'll kind of lay off it a little bit. Whoop, charged up a little bit much again. And this is a problem with some of these lasers that have the higher power. That being said, I can actually keep the power on it a little bit because you notice the red is pretty much gone now. So we'll have to move back into range because I backed up a little bit just in case it started to crack or pop. If you'll notice next to where it says optimal max, that number there, that 43, that was how far we are from the rock. Alright, so rather than pick up those rocks right now, what I'm going to do is go through and see what else I need to break. So here's another one I need to break. 1752, 12%. And because it needs broke, we're still going to break it, even though we may not get the break we want. So we're going to have to get within range again. It's about the same size as what the other rock was, so I know we're not going to want a lot of power. There's no aluminum in this one, just inert material, so keep that in mind. Try to keep it in there. We're in the red right now as far as optimal goes, so we're going to move in just a little bit more. Try to keep it in that bottom half of that charge window until it charges up. And then we're just going to rinse and repeat this until we have all the chunks broke. So here's another one. This one's actually 4,800. So this one we're probably safe. This one we probably don't have to worry too much about. Theoretically, power-wise, it's only 28% Vexillite, and it's a lot of inert. So this one, the distance is not as big of a factor because the 20% doesn't matter. Because you still have to put a little bit into it to get it up there. Alright, let's see. We'll get this one. I think we've got 2 more pieces we've got to break after this. Like my joysticks need calibrated again. Alright. So there's that one. I think we got these 2 rocks back here yet. This is a 2775, so we'll have to break that as well. But the green shouldn't matter as much being 2775. Let's see. I'll keep my hand on my left stick to back up if I need to, just in case it gets too much power. I've got my power turned all the way down right now. Back up a little bit until it starts to drop, and then that way if I need to I can put some more power in to keep it up in there. So it's all a matter of just controlling your ship, controlling your mining laser power, and so forth. There we go, there's that one. We should have this one here, which is another 2200. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll back out till we're in the yellow just barely. We'll hold for a second and see if it stays there at 42 meters. Then we'll go ahead and start it. Let's see what happens. So we'll go ahead and charge it up. Once you get used to it, you can drive it a little faster to get it up in there. Just to save yourself some time. And then once you get up in there, kick it back down. Alright, we're in that halfway zone there. And we'll get this last one broken, and we should be able to... Well, there might be one underneath. We'll have to check. It looks like in the middle there, there's one that needs broke yet. So there's that. This looks like it's going to need broke as well. Yep, 3,100. Another 17% Vexillite. Now, even though these are small percentages, we have to re-break these rocks. So there's always the potential that we could actually get a bigger congregation of Vexillite in the rock than what this indicates. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so we can actually probably move it a little bit to the green here, into the optimal. Do the same thing we've done on the other ones. We'll go ahead and drive it up a little bit to get it up in the charge zone. Now, this is a 3,100 rock, so it's going to take a little driving. Get it up into the charge zone, which is that first window there. Then we'll back off the power to keep it stable. We don't Don't want it to climb too fast up in there. Remember, the closer you get to that red zone, the more chance you have of overpowering the rock and cracking and charging it up too high. You overcharge it, then you end up with more issues than you want. Alright, that should be all of the rocks there. So now we're going to hold the left Alt button and our left mouse button to click over. So you hold the left Alt, click your left mouse button, it'll click over to extract mode. Now we're going to go through here and we're going to check these rocks and see what we can find. What we're looking for, preferably, is rocks that are 40 to 50% or higher bexylite. We'll take lower if we have to, but I'd rather not. There's a 38. Now keep in mind, this was a pretty big rock, so we're talking this, picking everything up here would be more than the golem can hold. Doesn't look like we got a very good break here at all. There's a 29. 100% aluminum, we don't want that. 32. This is honestly probably the most time-consuming part, is going through here and looking to see what you got. We already checked that one. Let's go underneath here, see what we got. 54, so we'll go ahead and grab that, extract it. See how fast that cargo is going up right now? 7, 31. Let's see what we got here. Very little. So we didn't get a very good break, but that's all right because normally we wouldn't even be able to break this rock. So I'm okay with that. That? That's 83% pixelite. We'll take that at 1400 mass. Most definitely. Alright, let's see. So now we're already a third of the way full. Let's see what we got here. 31%. So the idea is, in this bottom right corner here, you'll see right here, the idea is to have more bexylite in here than you have aluminum or inert materials. That's the plan. It's not always possible, but it is ideal. Alright, so there's another 50%er, 56%, we'll take that. At 792 mass. 30%. 4%. Maybe we can see some stuff underneath here more now. And you can move around. So if you can't see a rock very well, move your ship around until you can actually see it. So like right here, I've got 45% that I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. And we're outside of the zone here. Optimal range. Pick that up. Alright. Now let's try something different because I haven't tried this yet. So what I want to try is, let's see if I can move any of these rocks out of the way. I've got the max lift tractor beam on me. I've not tried this personally. I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but let's find out. Go ahead and put the mining head away for a minute. Go ahead and shut the engines off with I again. We'll get out. Keep in mind, there might be stuff hidden under here I can't see because the other stuff's in the way. And normally there's no way to do anything about that. But I'm going to try and see if I can move stuff with this max lift. I don't think it's going to let me because this stuff is too, yeah, this stuff is too heavy. Yeah, unfortunately. They've not made it that you can actually do that yet, so we'll see what happens. Considering some of the 16 and 32 SCU crates that I picked up with that thing, that's kind of unrealistic. I should be able to move those rocks, but apparently the mechanics aren't in the game for it. So we'll go back to just picking up what we can tell is there. And there were still some 30-something percenters in there, so if nothing else, we can get those. All right, power back on. Get back up in the air, get your laser going. So there's a 38. We'll go ahead and grab that. What else we got here? Right, 31, maybe. Doing this one because maybe if nothing else, it'll actually get some stuff underneath that I haven't seen yet. So you'll see that one right there I've never seen yet. That's 14. 8. 37. We'll go ahead and grab that, and that's at 23. Oh, we might have to break that one again. Let's see. Moving a little closer here. Yep, we're going to have to break that one. So that's another re-break there. So again, left alt, left mouse click. All right, we'll go ahead and back out into the yellow here on the optimal. When I'm saying backing out to the yellow, this is what I'm talking about right here. Backing out past this little line and before this bigger line. That's outside of the optimal zone, so the power is not as powerful there. All right, then we'll go ahead and charge this rock up and get it broken. All right, let's see. Cut back on the power so we can keep it in the lower part of that bar. Anything under about 2K is going to be hard to crack for this laser. It actually started moving further back there. All right, so now that we've got that broke, now we can check these rocks. All right, so let's see. There we go, 61%. That's more like it. Of course, now with my luck, I'll find a 100%er. Yeah, there's a 44. All right, so we'll go with this one. This one's going to fill us up here. There you go. We are full. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back over to fracture mode. I'll get rid of my mining laser. Actually, let's take a look at this real quick. So if you'll look, what I've got here is I've got 19.05 SCU of Bexolite, 9.8 or 9.03 of aluminum, and 3.9 SCU of inert. So that's an ideal situation there. I've got more of the good material than I do of the bad ones. And right now, aluminum down the road may become important, but right now it's not considered very great. Make sure you put your landing gear up. We're going to go ahead and switch into the nav mode. While I'm climbing out of atmosphere, I'm going to go ahead and set my route. It doesn't matter whether you're going to sell in or Microtech one of the moons there, and you're mining from Mike L2 or L1, or even with Hurston at her L1. So it doesn't really matter where you're doing it. It's going to be the same process everywhere. All right, let's see. So we're actually out. You can see we're online now. Go ahead and remove hit Alt-C to remove cruise. Now the other key here is make sure you get into the station as fast as possible. If you know there's pirate activity on a server, actually set your location to someplace else and then come back towards Crew L1. That's just a little tip to get you there without getting caught by pirates. Because the Manises will actually pull you out of Quantum, and you won't be able to go back into it until they're gone. Chances are you'll end up getting killed before that happens anyway. Alright. So now we'll wait for it to appear. There's the station. Alright, we'll get in here as fast as we can now. So we'll use our boost as much as we can. Getting closer to the station. I'm just going to go ahead and use it all because I'm not worried about it. Alright, and then once I'm in closer here, I'll go ahead and switch over to SCM. Go ahead and hit your button to either call for a hangar on the comms menu or just hit whatever button you set it to, and then find your hangar and land. Alright. My landing gear down. Go ahead and land here. Trying to stay near the center. There we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and repair and refuel here. Hit F1, go to landing. Click whatever you need to. And I'm going to go ahead and exit the ship. Now, because I'm not at my home base, this is not a persistent hangar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to store the ship before I go to the refinery. So basically just scroll down to where your ship is and store it. Now, you'll notice I can still see the BN8128SH. That's my ship identifier. And as long as that's there, my ship is not stored yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stay in here until that disappears and the doors are closed on the hangar floor. Alright, now we can actually go refine our ore. I already covered refining in the last one, so I'm going to go ahead and forego that this time. What I will say is, if you have any questions or comments, now we're already over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. If there's something you didn't understand or you need more guidance on, also tell me that. And if you actually think of something that you think maybe I didn't touch on that you're interested in and you'd like me to explain, please let me know that as well in the comments. All right, with that being said, thank you for watching and have a nice day.